Hey, I'm Elise. My sister told me never to come back after I gave her $1 million to save her company. Sounds harsh, right? But the truth is that wasn't even the worst part. The silence, the erasure, the years of playing the dutiful one. They were rewriting who I was right under my nose. And I let them until I didn't. Before we begin, what time are you listening to this? And where are you tuning in from? Drop it in the comments. We're building a space where every unheard story gets a voice. The rain started around 7. Soft at first, like murmurs on the windows. I didn't notice it until I set my tea down and realized it had gone cold. My apartment was quiet, dimly lit by a single lamp in the corner and the pale glow of my laptop screen. I had just finished a client report for work and was about to shut everything down for the night when my phone lit up beside me. Nora. Her name blinking on the screen didn't shock me as much as it should have. It had been weeks since we last spoke. Weeks of silence after our last family dinner ended in one of her dramatic exits over a joke no one even recalled. But Nora had always been like that. She'd disappear for months and then reappear with a story, a crisis, a need. This time, something about the way her name pulsed on the screen made me pause and pick up. Her voice was unsteady, like she'd been crying for hours. Ellie, can you talk? I stayed silent, letting her fill the space the way she always did. There's been a situation with the company. We lost a major investor. I've had to lay off half the dev team. Her breath caught. I need help. That's when I heard a second voice. Elise, sweetheart. My mother said smoothly, like she'd been waiting to jump in. This is family. You know your sister's always fought so hard for her business. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes catching the blinking cursor on the screen. My chamomile tea had gone bitter. She didn't want to call you, my mom continued. She was embarrassed, but you're the only one in the family who can do something. Please, baby. Nora's voice cut back in, quieter this time. I know it's a lot, but if I lose the company now, everything I've worked for, it's over. She sounded terrified, desperate, and I'll admit it. There was a flicker of pride in me that she'd come to me instead of some faceless investor. Maybe she still saw me as the one who could hold things together. Maybe that meant something. But pride is a strange currency in families like mine. It's invisible and it doesn't spend. I opened my financial dashboard on my laptop. The numbers glowed back at me. $1. 4 million in personal savings, built over nearly a decade in corporate strategy for a venture capital firm. I wasn't wealthy, not really, but I had carved stability out of chaos. And now chaos was calling from both coasts, asking for a bailout. I started typing a short contract, bridge funding, repayment terms, optional equity. Then Nora spoke again. You're seriously drafting a contract for me? Her voice shifted, less pleading, more offended. I didn't respond, but I hovered over the document I'd just typed. She continued, Wow, so now I'm just another business transaction to you. Before I could answer, my mom cut in, her voice ice wrapped in velvet. If your father were still alive, he'd be ashamed you needed paperwork to help your sister. I stared at the screen for another 10 seconds. Then I closed the tab, deleted the file. In one click, I erased the only shield I had left between emotion and logic. An hour later, I transferred $1 million from my private account to Nora's business account. No documents, no agreements, just the kind of trust you're taught to give unconditionally until you learn better. The call ended with a whispered thank you. No details, no timeline, just silence. As if the moment she got what she wanted, the urgency vanished. I sat in the dark for a long while, the glow of the monitor bathing the room in a sickly blue light. Outside, the rain turned heavier, hitting the window like a warning. My tea had gone completely cold. I just saved a company I don't even work for, I murmured aloud to no one. No confirmation, no follow-up, just stillness. Somewhere deep in my chest, something shifted. Not quite regret, something worse. An early awareness that I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And Nora? She might have already walked away. I told myself I was helping family, but deep down, something already felt off. That feeling didn't fade. It settled and improvised, like damp air that never quite clears, lingering even after the rain outside my window had stopped. 3 days passed, then 4. Not a word. No text, no email, no call, just silence. I checked my phone more than I care to admit. The last message I sent to Nora, funds sent, let me know when it clears, was still marked delivered. I'd stare at it, willing the three dots to appear. They never did. The days moved, but I felt like I hadn't. I went to work, showed up to meetings, nodded at presentations, but inside, it felt like I was holding a room full of glass. Every breath, every minute without a reply made something inside crack a little more. By the fifth day, the silence wasn't just rude. It was deafening. That's when my mother called. I was walking home from work, hands tucked into my coat pockets, mind drifting between grocery lists and unspoken resentments. Her name lit up on my screen, and I hesitated. I already knew how this conversation would go. "Oh, Elise," she began, with that tone she used when she was about to disguise judgment as concern. "I just spoke to your sister. She's under so much pressure. I hope you're not expecting her to send you flowers right now." I didn't say anything, just let her talk. "She's trying to save an entire company. You can't imagine the weight on her shoulders. And honey, you make more money than all of us combined. That money, come on. It's not like it's life-changing for you." I gripped the phone tighter, not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't thank me. She didn't even pause long enough to wonder what it cost me. Not just in money, but in hope. "I just think," she continued, "if you're going to make her feel guilty, that's not fair." I almost laughed. Guilt me. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I sat on my couch, legs tucked under me, staring at the blank TV screen. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was somewhere between numb and confused. I kept replaying the same moment over and over, her voice trembling. The way she said, "You're the only one who can help." It had felt real, desperate, human. But now it felt rehearsed. I thought about all the times I'd helped in silence. Paid Caleb's student loans when he flunked out. Sent money when Dad's medication lapsed. Rewired the house budget during that hurricane year. I never asked for a spotlight. I didn't even ask for credit. But this was different. This was $1 million. This was the future I'd been saving for. I had planned to start my own boutique advisory firm, my first solo venture. I had picked the office space, met with potential junior partners, built out the name. I'd even found a branding agency in Tacoma that was holding a quote for me. I shelved it all for Nora, and they acted like it never happened. I wasn't asking for applause. I wasn't asking for recognition, but pretending it didn't exist? That stung in a way I hadn't prepared for. Around 9 p.m., I made tea, sat back down with my laptop. Work usually calmed me. It gave me control, purpose. But tonight I kept switching tabs, email, calendar, Instagram, then back again. That's when I saw it. A new post from Nora. Her profile was the same polished curation it always was. Black turtleneck, gold-rimmed glasses, soft filters, and sharp captions. The photo was of her and her team standing in the open space of their glass-walled office. They were clapping, smiling, holding iced coffees like warriors of hustle. The caption read, "Against all odds, built it from nothing. Hashtag self-made, hashtag foundergrind, hashtag grateful." No mention of the midnight call. No word of the money. No tag. Not even a hint of the sacrifice that made that photo possible. Built it from nothing. I stared at that line like it had punched me. I didn't even realize I'd spilled tea onto my notebook until the warmth touched my palm. That moment didn't just hurt. It rearranged something in me. Because suddenly I saw it, the pattern, the script, the way I had always been the backstage crew in their play, always funding, fixing, and fading into the background. But this time, they forgot to dim the lights. They weren't just ignoring me. They were rewriting the story. And the worst part? They were doing it so easily. It was a Thursday morning when it hit me in the gut. I was checking LinkedIn while waiting for my latte at the corner cafe near my office. Between connection requests and industry posts, a bold headline stopped my thumb mid-scroll. Nora Vance, Woman of the Year in AI Innovation. Her face filled the screen. Perfect hair, confident smile, blazer crisp like she hadn't cried at 2 a.m., begging me to save her company. The article opened with flair, praising her for rescuing her firm from imminent collapse without outside capital through sheer determination and strategic vision. I blinked once, twice. That sentence looped in my brain like static, without outside capital. I reread the paragraph again, this time out loud, quietly, like maybe I'd misread it. But there it was, clear as daylight. The part where I didn't exist. There was no mention of funding, no whisper of support, No acknowledgement that the only reason she had a company left to smile about was because I had hit send on $1 million transfer. I clicked on the comment section. The feed was a stream of applause. Executives praising her resilience. Investors calling her an inspiration to female founders. College classmates tagging each other, writing things like, "Remember when she pitched that idea in Econ 201? She's always been a force." I wasn't looking for credit. I wasn't looking for headlines. But lies? Lies written in glossy, shareable press releases? That was different. I closed my laptop that night with more force than necessary. My apartment felt colder, even though the heater was humming. I paced between the kitchen and living room, trying not to give in to the voice screaming inside me. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Nora. It wasn't long. "Is this how you want to tell the story?" Message delivered. Seen. And that was it. No reply again. By the next evening, I needed air. Or distraction. Maybe both. I texted Julian, a former colleague from my time at Stonebridge Capital. We hadn't caught up in months, but he was always good for a drink and a straight opinion. We met at a downtown bar with dim lights and overpriced wine. He looked the same, always a bit too casual for the wealth he managed. Halfway through our second glass, he leaned over with a smirk. "So, I hear your sister pulled off some miracle funding round." I tilted my head. "Miracle?" He shrugged. "Rumor is she raised her valuation almost overnight. People are saying she got an angel investor to pour in a quiet million to boost numbers before a merger pitch. Clean move." My stomach turned. I played dumb. "Any idea who the investor was?" He took another sip. "No names, but apparently she ghosted them after. Classic startup play. Take the money, close the round, disappear." I smiled, but my face felt frozen. Inside, something broke. Not all at once, but like an old wall shifting, cracking brick by brick. I drove home in silence. The highway lights blurred in my peripheral vision. When I got in, I didn't even take off my coat. I went straight to my desk, opened my encrypted files, and pulled up the transfer record. There it was, date, time, amount. Clean, simple, unmistakable. I created a new folder, Nora Proof. Then I sat back, stared at the ceiling, and let the anger rise. Not wild, not chaotic, but measured, controlled, focused. I wasn't hurt anymore. Not exactly. I was awake. By the following week, I received an email from my mother. Subject line: Asterisk Thanksgiving at home, same time as always. Asterisk there was no body text, just a line at the bottom. Asterisk bring wine, darling. Preferably not red. Gives your dad heartburn. Asterisk I stared at it longer than I should have. After everything, after being ghosted, lied about, erased, I was still expected to show up. And worse, a part of me wanted to. Maybe I was still chasing something. Not an apology, not even acknowledgement, just recognition, the kind you hope for from people who raised you. So I said yes. I bought a bottle of white wine, Chardonnay, mid-range, nothing fancy. On Thanksgiving morning, I ironed a soft teal blouse, paired it with black trousers and low heels. I even brought a cinnamon tart I knew Dad liked. "Maybe this time they'll see me," I muttered while brushing my hair. Almost ashamed, I still clung to the thought. Traffic was light. The streets were lined with gold and rust-colored leaves. Families unloading dishes from their trunks. Kids with paper turkey hats running down sidewalks. When I pulled into the driveway, Nora's car was already there. I exhaled and reminded myself not to expect too much. The house hadn't changed. Same autumn wreath on the door, same creaky porch step, same scent of rosemary and baked stuffing drifting from the kitchen. Inside, Nora was in the center of everything, laughing, telling some story about nearly losing the lease on her new office space. Everyone laughed like it was the most hilarious thing they'd ever heard. My mom was beaming. I sat in the only open seat, slightly off to the side, like someone had added a chair at the last minute. Dinner was served. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, all plated carefully. Nora was glowing in a silk blouse and gold earrings, like the cover of a holiday magazine. My father offered a toast. "To family," he said, then quickly added, "and to Nora who built something incredible out of nothing. A true self-made story." My mother stood beside him, glass raised. "To strength," she said. "To Nora's brilliance and tenacity. No one helped her. She did it all on her own." The room erupted in applause. I smiled, not real, but the kind that saves face. Tight, practiced smile. Later, I found myself alone in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing casserole dishes. My hands moved on autopilot. The noise from the dining room had dimmed. That's when Nora appeared behind me. Her heels clicked slowly on the tile. She didn't offer to help. "If you're here to start something," she said, tone sharp, "don't. This isn't about you." I turned. "I gave you $1 million. She leaned on the counter. "You gave it. No one forced you. That's not on me." "You erased me, Nora." She tilted her head. "Grow up, Elise. What, you want a parade? Want credit? Write a memoir. I'll even send a blurb." I clenched the dish towel in my hand. "You act like I owe you a spotlight," she went on. "But you've always been like this, quiet in the background. Why mess with a dynamic that works?" I didn't answer. My mother walked in at that moment, and Nora shifted instantly, her voice light. "Need help with dessert, Mom?" My mom didn't even glance at me. "No, honey. Just bring the whipped cream." I finished the dishes, dried my hands, and stepped outside. The cold air cut through my blouse, but I didn't go back in. That night, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom. Same faded posters on the wall. Same creaky fan overhead. I thought I was done being hurt, but there it was again, gnawing. A memory came back, like a wound you forgot until someone pressed it. 5th grade. I'd spent a whole week building a model volcano, papier-mâché, food coloring, baking soda, vinegar. I labeled every part with color-coded notes. On the day of the science fair, I caught Nora wheeling it into her classroom. I told Mom. She put a hand on my shoulder and said, "You're the little sister. Let her shine. You'll have your turn." I never did. Turns out that moment wasn't just a fluke. It was the blueprint. Thanksgiving had ended in echoes. Plates scraped clean, chairs pushed back, Nora's voice still bouncing in my ears like static that wouldn't shut off. I had driven home in silence, staring blankly at the freeway while something inside me shifted. Not just anger, something colder, sharper. By the time I walked through my front door, I knew I couldn't let this sit anymore. I changed out of my clothes, tied my hair back, opened my laptop, and created a new folder on my desktop. Debt and Truth. Inside it, I started a spreadsheet. Nothing dramatic, just columns. Date, amount, purpose, confirmation. Line by line, I began filling it in. January 12th, $1,000, Caleb's overdue car payment. March 3rd, $3,200, Mom's dental surgery. May 27th, $980, mortgage hold. August 14th, $1 million, Nora business rescue. My fingers hovered above the last row. Then I opened Nora's company website, clicked on the Investors tab. There it was, buried in a press release from the same week I wired her the money. Asterisk excited to announce our pre-series round closed successfully. Strategic partnerships and angel backers made it possible. Asterisk I clicked into the business filings. One line struck like a slap. Outside capital confirmed. August 17th, 3 days after my transfer. I stared at the screen, the numbers dancing in sync with my heartbeat. So, she hadn't used the money to stop a collapse. She had used it to inflate value, to bait in new money, to look strong, stable, desirable. My money had been the decoy. I didn't save her. I launched her. The rage didn't come all at once. It came like a tide, pulling back just far enough for you to believe it's calm before slamming in with everything it has. I called the original bank I had used to wire the money. I knew they wouldn't give much, but I phrased it carefully, saying I was reconciling a transfer to a business partner for tax purposes. After 3 rounds of security questions, the voice on the line confirmed. Yes, the wire was marked as unsecured capital, not a loan, not earmarked for debt relief. I thanked her, hung up, and sat still for a long time. Then I remembered something I hadn't thought about in weeks. The night Nora called me. The one with the trembling voice and broken sentences. She hadn't just called. She had joined me on Zoom, said it was easier than typing. I pulled up my archived Zoom folder. There it was, Nora Vance _call August 13. I hit play. Her face filled the screen. Dim lighting, no makeup, a version of her the world never saw. "If this works," she said, voice cracking, "I'll give you shares. I swear. You're literally saving the company, Elise." I paused, rewound, played it again. Asterisk I'll give you shares. I swear. Asterisk that wasn't casual. That was a promise. And in court, a verbal promise, especially recorded, meant something. Maybe not enough to win, but enough to shake the ground she stood on. I saved the video in 2 backup drives. Then I emailed a copy to myself under the subject verbal agreement August 13th. After that, I exported the spreadsheet, took screenshots of every confirmation, every filing. I created a new folder and labeled it simply legal leverage. My hands were steady as I clicked through each step. But inside, I could feel something rising, no longer shame, no longer grief, not even fury. It was clarity. She had lied, rewritten me, gaslit the family, cut me out of the photo, and smiled like she had built the house from scratch when I had been the one hauling bricks. I wasn't going public yet. I wasn't ready to scorch the earth. But the fuse was in my hands now, and I wasn't looking for permission anymore. It was just past noon when I saw the envelope. Thick, cream-colored, no return address. Only a gold-embossed seal from a legal firm I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it might be another bank offer or a tax notice. But when I tore it open, my breath caught. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter. For pages, cold legal language, unwarranted interference, verbal harassment, deliberate misinterpretation of familial exchanges. The words blurred, then sharpened into focus. At the bottom, Nora's counsel's signature. There was no phone call, no text, not even a message from her pretending to be civil. Just a letter that painted me as the aggressor for helping, for asking for honesty, for not staying small and quiet. I read the letter twice, then laid it flat on the coffee table. And that's when my phone buzzed. Nora. Her text was short, blunt. Asterisk, you're being dramatic. It was a gift. You should have known better. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. My hands weren't trembling from fear, but from something deeper. I exhaled through my nose slowly, grounding myself in the silence of the room. This is war, I whispered. She wasn't just rewriting history. She was building a legal wall around her lies. But I had bricks too, and mine were facts. That night, I opened every file I had saved, every screenshot, every bank confirmation, every email where she asked, pleaded, promised. I opened the Zoom file again, her voice shaky and grateful. If this works, I'll give you shares. I swear. You're literally saving the company. Then I opened our text thread and scrolled back. The receipts were everywhere. I'll pay you back once we stabilize. I can't believe you're doing this for me. Asterisk, I won't forget it. Asterisk, and now she was calling it a gift. Convenient. I compiled everything, screenshots with timestamps, audio files with transcripts. I converted each file into PDF format, organizing them under a folder named Defense, personal to professional. Then I drafted an email addressed to 2 former legal contacts from my VC days, one a corporate litigator, the other a private equity contract specialist. Subject line: need formal review, potential breach and defamation. I didn't explain everything. I just attached the files with a short note. Asterisk, would appreciate your professional eyes on this. Situation involves undocumented equity promise, financial contribution, and current legal pushback. I believe I'm being gaslit into silence. Asterisk, I hit send. Less than 3 hours later, I got a reply from one of them, Joel. Asterisk, Elise, this is serious. You have leverage, especially if that recording is authenticated. She's already done more than toe the line. She's going to regret underestimating you. Asterisk, I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. Not out of fear, but release. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin her. But I wanted my name back. I wanted the truth in the room, even if no one clapped for it. Especially then. I wasn't going to explode publicly. Not yet. That wasn't my style. But I was done playing her version of the story. Later that night, I stood by my window with a mug of tea, watching the Seattle skyline through streaks of rain. It looked different now. Not like something I was drowning in, but like something washing me clean. I pressed my fingers to the glass and whispered, not in anger, just truth. I'm not your little shadow anymore. After forwarding the cease and desist letter to my legal contacts, I spent the weekend reviewing every document, every recording, every text exchange again. Not to question my decision, but to remind myself this wasn't just petty family drama. This was calculated erasure. On Monday morning, as I scrolled through tech news with my coffee, Nora's name popped up on the front page of a Seattle Innovation Forum. Keynote speaker Nora Vance. Ethics and Innovation in Startup Culture. I almost choked on my drink. Ethics, from the woman who gaslit her own sister and repackaged a $1 million bailout as a bootstrap story. I clicked the link. The conference was in 4 days, right in downtown Seattle. I stared at the registration button for a moment. Then, with steady hands, I booked a second-row seat. No hesitation. This wasn't revenge. This was presence. That night, I logged into the shared company dashboard, the one I helped design during Nora's frantic early days. I still had the login saved in my password manager, but when I entered it, the page flickered, and then an alert appeared in red. Access revoked by primary admin N. Vance. I stared at the screen, almost amused. I took a screenshot and dragged it into my folder titled Erasure. The symbolism couldn't have been louder if she'd written it in neon. You don't exist here anymore. She wanted me gone. And yet, I was going to be sitting just a few feet from her on that stage. The day of the conference came with overcast skies, but I walked into the venue with my back straight and my shoulders steady. Everyone in the lobby buzzed about Nora. Her turnaround, her grit, her comeback from the edge. They didn't know. Not yet. Inside the auditorium, I took my seat in the second row, right center, directly facing the podium. The lights dimmed. Nora stepped out in heels and a sleek pantsuit, smiling like she owned the universe. She launched into her speech with practiced ease. I built this from the ground up. When everything fell apart, I didn't wait for help. I created solutions. The audience nodded, enthralled. I sat with my hands clasped, waiting. Then came the Q&A. The moderator looked around. We have time for one more question. I raised my hand. He almost passed me over until I spoke. My name is Elise Vance. The room fell silent. Nora blinked, the corners of her mouth tightening just slightly. I'm the person who transferred $1 million to this company 18 months ago. No contract, no shares, no public acknowledgement. I was erased. Several heads turned. Phones rose. I have receipts, email threads, Zoom recordings, texts, screenshots, bank transfers. I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here to correct the record. Nora's face drained of color. The moderator fumbled. Let's move. But it was too late. The moment had ignited. The room, once humming with admiration, now buzzed with shock. Whispers spread like wildfire. Camera phones were up. Someone behind me muttered, "Wait, what did she say?" I didn't linger. I said what needed to be said. I stood, smoothed my coat, and walked out. Quietly, firmly. By the time I reached the sidewalk, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages flooded in. Some from journalists asking for comment, some from angel investors I hadn't heard from in years, and one from a former intern at Nora's company. You just blew up the room. By the time I poured my morning coffee, my name was no longer just buried beneath Nora's shadow. It was everywhere. Tech blogs, Twitter threads, Reddit posts, screenshots of my statement at the conference had gone viral overnight. Some praised the courage, others questioned the timing. But the most important part? They were finally telling the right story. And Nora? Silent. Not even a vague post about overcoming adversity or online trolls. Just complete digital stillness. By noon, a headline hit my inbox that made me set my mug down mid-sip. TrueVest suspends funding to Vance Technologies pending internal review. That was her top investor, the lifeline she bragged about in interviews, and it had just been cut. I clicked through the article. Words like ethical breach, failure to disclose financial sources, and breach of trust jumped off the screen. LinkedIn, once her echo chamber of applause, was now swarming with suspicion. People who once praised her as a self-made wonder were asking uncomfortable questions. And Nora wasn't answering any of them. The next message I got wasn't from a stranger. It was from Tara, Nora's former CFO. I hadn't spoken to Tara since a holiday dinner years ago, back when she was still just the numbers girl, following Nora around with spreadsheets and tired eyes. Her message was short but direct. Asterisk, we always knew it was you who saved us. I thought it was wrong how she erased you. Asterisk, I stared at it for a long time. Then the follow-up came. Asterisk, internally, we marked your contribution as an anonymous angel funder. Nora told us that was your wish. Asterisk. I clenched my jaw. That was a lie, a complete fabrication. Not once did I ask to be anonymous. I didn't want a billboard, but I wanted to exist. Instead, my own sister had spun a story so tightly that even her closest staff believed it. I replied, "Thank you. That helps more than you know." Tara sent me the internal memo, a PDF from their old shared drive, dated 4 days after my transfer. I downloaded it, archived it, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail the first time, then the second, but by the third, something told me to pick up. Her voice was sharp, clipped, already loaded with blame before I even said hello. What did you do, Elise? Your sister's reputation is in tatters. She's getting death threats. I sat down at my desk, looked out the window at the gray Seattle skyline, and answered calmly. I told the truth. You could have handled it privately. So could she. She chose silence. She chose lawyers. There was a pause. Then the line clicked off. Not even a goodbye. For the first time, I didn't cry after a call with my mother. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. A text from Dad. Just 5 words. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I believe you. Asterisk, it was the first time in my adult life he'd ever taken my side. No fanfare, no follow-up, just quiet alignment. It was enough. That evening, I walked through downtown and found myself standing in front of the building I once thought would carry my company's name. I'd almost launched a firm of my own there 2 years ago. I had the plan, the investors, the momentum, until Nora called, crying in the middle of the night, and I redirected everything to her. Looking at it now, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel regret. Just a soft, unexpected sense of peace. That building would have been beautiful. But what I was building now, something stronger, something mine. She'd erased me once. Now the world was remembering. 6 months after the conference, I no longer woke to panic or the sound of legal threats pinging on my phone. Instead, it was birds. Just birds and the low hum of downtown Asheville waking up beneath my third-story apartment. I lived above a bookstore now, a creaky, charming place that smelled of old paper, spiced tea, and the kind of second chances I never believed in until they found me. Every morning, I opened the balcony doors wide, let the Carolina breeze fill the room, and made my own coffee in silence. Number 2 a.m. emergencies. No can you help from people who only called when they needed saving, just quiet. And in that quiet, I found something I hadn't had in years. Peace that didn't feel borrowed. The bookstore paid just enough. I worked 3 days a week. The rest of the time I wrote. Nothing publishable yet, just pieces. Memories, fragments of conversations, things I wished I had said sooner. I kept a journal titled The Price of Silence. Not for publication, just for me. One night, I found myself revisiting a draft email I'd written to Nora but never sent. It had lived in my inbox for months, like a ghost waiting to be released. Asterisk, you broke more than a promise. You broke trust. I hope someday you fix that. Asterisk, I hovered over the send button more than once. But I always clicked away. Not because I was afraid, because I'd realized something. Closure wasn't about getting the last word. It was about finally letting go of needing one. Some things don't deserve an ending. They deserve distance. Instead of sending the email, I deleted it. And when I did, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like unburdening a version of myself I no longer had to carry. A few weeks later, I ran into a former client from my VC days. He was passing through Asheville and recognized me in the cafe downstairs. We spoke briefly. He asked what I was working on now. I smiled and simply said, rebuilding. He didn't ask about Nora. Maybe he already knew. Maybe he didn't care. Either way, I was relieved. Rumors eventually reached me. Nora had lost 2 major partnerships, something about a failed prototype, missed deadlines. No one had come after me legally. No lawsuit, no apology, just more silence. But this time, I didn't mistake silence for peace. I'd stopped waiting to be seen by people who were never going to see me. I was already standing in my own light. And that was enough. My parents, we weren't close. But the occasional text from my father reminded me that at least once, he chose me. That mattered more than I thought it would. One rainy Tuesday, a teenager walked into the bookstore with wide eyes and a nervous voice. Hi. Do you have books about starting a business? She reminded me of myself. Hopeful, naive, ready to bet it all on a dream. I guided her to the shelf, pulled out a copy of The Lean Startup and another titled Women Who Build. She clutched them like they were keys to something big. Before she turned away, I added quietly, start with knowing your worth. Everything else comes later. She nodded, eyes soft but determined. It was a small moment, but something shifted in me. For the first time, I didn't see myself as someone who had been used or erased. I saw someone who had lived, learned, and endured and still chose to give. That night, I sat on the balcony again, a cup of tea in hand, journal in my lap, the moon casting soft shadows through the railing. I flipped to the last page and wrote a final entry. Asterisk, I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped pretending they weren't already ash. I didn't fight to ruin her. I fought to reclaim me. And I'm still here, still writing, still rising. Asterisk. What would you have done if your own sister rewrote your story and shut you out after you saved everything she built? This wasn't just a story about money. It was about identity, loyalty, and the courage to walk away when silence becomes betrayal. If this story struck a chord with you or reminded you of a moment you had to choose yourself over family expectations, drop a comment. We want to hear your voice. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow this channel for more true-to-life family drama stories that expose the hidden fault lines behind smiles and blood ties. Your story matters, and you're not alone.